I'd like to create an example of a solution, a problem in which we are going to create a credit card. We're going to create an object, and we're going to use an application that utilizes our credit card for the solution. And the idea here is that I want to create an app that keeps track of credit card purchases and payments. When the app opens, the credit card is created with the starting balance of 0. Then at the end, we'll display the final balance when the user has entered all of their transactions. So it's going to look something like this. So when we start the app, we have a greeting, welcome to the credit card app. And then we're going to create the credit card object. What is the name of the credit card holder? So our credit card, one of its properties is that it has a name, cardholder name, and then it also has a starting balance of 0. Well, I don't need to display that, but it's going to be created behind the scenes, and I'll show you how that works. And then we're presented with a menu item of choices: make a payment, make a purchase, or quit the program. So let's make a purchase. So I'll enter enter the purchase amount. Let's say they purchased something, I purchased something, $75.15. I'm asked again for the menu item. Let's make a payment on it, and then I'll make a $25 payment. And then at this point, I will quit the program. At the end, then I'm presented with the ending balance, nicely formatted, and then please enter to complete. Okay, so let's kind of break this down before we tackle the problem. Let's look at our credit card object and kind of figure out what of those things in that problem define what a credit card is. Well, in all of those things, again, we have to think about abstractly, what does the credit card look like? What kind of properties does it have, and what kind of methods does it have? What kind of things can it do? So properties, well, we said that it had a card holder name, and we also said that it has a balance. So it's keeping track of a running balance, okay? And some of the things that it can do, well, it can make a payment, and when it uses as a method, and when it makes a payment, it adds subtracts the payment from the balance. And what else can it do? It can make a purchase, and make the purchase added the purchase to the balance. And one other thing that we're going to make it do is display its balance. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. Display the balance. Show the current balance. Okay, or print. I guess maybe we could say print. That would make sense. Okay, so this is what we're going to create in our credit card object. Okay. So how do we create the credit card? Now I'm going to do this on 2 separate files like I showed you in one of the last videos. So I have a credit card.py. And remember, to create a credit card class, we are going to write the word class. Now we're creating the blueprint for our credit cards. So what would we've kind of described what it looks like, what a credit card would look like abstractly or generically. So a class, we'll call this credit card. And remember, the first thing we're going to do is create that constructor. In other words, this is the first method that runs as soon as that object is created. This is the first thing it's going to do. It's sort of like initializing the object. And remember, the first word is self. And we're going to receive the card holder name. So I need to know when we create the credit card object, what is the name of the credit card holder? Now, I could put balance here, but the thing is, I don't need that from the user. It's something I'm automatically going to set to 0. So I don't need to receive it here as a parameter, but I definitely want to define it here in my constructor or in my method here. So I'm going to take self. We're going to create a card holder name. Let's just say holder name, just so we can see these variables are different, so we don't get confused between the difference between the arguments that we're receiving and a new method name or the name of our class. our class property. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, self holder name equals that value that we receive here as an argument, card holder name. Okay, and then we're going to create this balance, and we're going to set it to 0. Okay, so we're initializing it to 0. We don't have to get that value from whoever is creating the object, whoever's calling us, but we can still set the default value to 0. So now our credit card has two properties, holder name and balance. Okay, so let's create some of these methods. Let's create a make payment. DEF make payment. And what do we need for? We always have to start off with the word self. Remember, it's receiving the object that's using this individual object that's using this method. And self, we need to know what the payment amount is going to be. So send us the payment amount and who is using me, what object, what specific credit card is using us. Remember, there could be lots of credit cards being created from this class. Okay. So when we get the payment amount, then we're going to get a balance. So get my individual unique objects balance and subtract. So we'll do minus equals. So take the balance that's in there and then subtract out the payment that was received. Okay, so that'll change the property balance. Okay. Likewise, we're going to create a make purchase, self, and a purchase amount. And it's the same thing, self.balance plus equals, so add to the balance the purchase amount. Okay, and then the last thing then we said that our credit card class should create, or our object should be able to do, is display its personal balance, its individual balance. I keep saying individual because I want you to keep in your head that when we're using this credit card class, we're using it to create individual credit cards. So think about the fact that we're currently creating what that plastic card would look like, an account for a plastic card would look like, and we hand out maybe 3 credit cards. And of course, each credit card we stamp from our class is going to have its own unique values. So each credit card is going to have its own card holder. It's going to have its own balance. It's going to have, obviously we want to make sure that we're applying payments and purchases to that particular credit card. Although it'd be nice if someone else made a payment on their credit card and it also paid on mine, but I guess that doesn't work out that way. All right. So display the balance. So we need to somehow display the balance. We use that word self, and we'll do something simple like print the balance is. I'm going to use some of that pretty formatting that we did in one of our other videos. I want a $sign, and this is something I haven't showed you yet, but I'm going to apply it here, and that is, well, let me finish out the dot format, and we're going to use self.balance. So that would certainly work, but what I want to do is make this a little bit cleaner with my formatting, and inside this placeholder I'm going to put a colon period 2F, and what that says is whatever number I give you, whatever number you're trying to print out, whatever number we give you from this balance, this object's balance, format it with 2 decimal places at the end. So even if we put in 50, it'll print out $50. So it's just a nice way to do some clean form, a little trick to do some pretty formatting. All right, so we haven't done anything that's going to print out yet because we're just creating this blueprint. But now we've got it, and let's go ahead and start working on our app. All right, so I think the first thing I'm going to do is start with my main. It's always a good place to start. Make sure I call it so I don't forget to call it. All right, so let's kind of think about what I need to do. Well, we need to create a greeting. I'm just going to kind of put the order of things here in which I want to create or to write my methods or my functions. So I'm going to have a greeting. I want to create the credit card object. Next, I think I want to display choices for my user. And then when they're all done with their choices, well, I guess we're going to have to display their choices, and then also display menu choices, I guess, and process the choice, right? Whether they do 1, 2, or 3. And then finally, we need to present or display the closing, which is the balance. Okay, that's the job we have at hand. I'm going to save that so I don't lose any of that. Okay, so let's work on the easy one first. Let's do the greeting. So, what kind of a greeting are we going to have? That's pretty simple. We're going to create a function that does a greeting, G-R-E-E-T, greeting. And in our greeting, we're just going to do something simple like print, welcome to the credit card app. Okay, and then let's do something pretty, print. I'm going to do this little shortcut we learned earlier. Take that asterisk, this literal asterisk, and multiply that by 30. So print that. Here in this case, what it's going to do is going to take that, similar to our plus being either a concatenator or an add. This multiply says print this out however many times we wrote here. So that's going to print asterisk 30 times, which happens to be the number of characters here. Not that I magically knew that. I did this beforehand, but of course. Okay, so why am I getting an error message here? Expected and indented. Oh, because I don't have any writing here. Okay, this is upset because it's mad that I have this main defined, but I don't have anything in the main. So we need to call our greeting, and that should make those red squiggly lines happy. Okay, I guess I have to spell greeting properly. All right, so that should get rid of all of our red squiggly lines. It does. And so if now we run it, we haven't done anything with our credit cards yet, but at least we're going to get a greeting, and I can see whether or not what I've done so far is working. And so I will type in Python credit card app.py, and it does in fact print my greeting. So we're on the way. All right, so the next step is going to be to create the credit card and object. All right, so we are going to create a function then that will create our credit card object. So we'll call it create card. And then I'm going to print, let's create the card. Okay. And if we remember, if we look at our credit card class, we're going to create a credit card object from our class. And here's what we'll run. This constructor or this method will run when we very first create the object. And so it requires, then we created it so that it's going to require the card holder name. So we're going to need to get that from our user. So we'll say name equals input. What is the name of the card holder? Okay. And then we've captured that name into this variable. And so we need to send it to our constructor when we create the object. So we'll call our credit card, I'm going to call it card obj. Not necessarily the best name for our variable name, but what I'm trying to get across to you, or just trying to reiterate over and over again, is that we're creating an object. We're creating an instance of a card or a card object from our blueprint or our class. So I'm going to call this card obj just so we get in the idea that it is a card object. And remember that in order to create a new object, we type in the name of the class, which is credit card, and then we'll do a parentheses. We don't need to send over an argument for self because this credit card object is automatically sending itself. And then we need to send over the card holder name, which is what we just got. So card holder, credit card and then name. All right, now that we have that card created, once we leave this function, remember that this variable, or this variable that's holding our object, will disappear. Remember, we talked about scope. And so in order to keep a hold of that object, we're going to send it back to return card object to the function that called us. So we need to call that function, which is create card. And so that's going to run this function, but we need to have a variable to catch the card object that is returned back. So we'll give it I'm going to give it a different name, credit card obj equals to, just so you'll see that it's the same idea. I could put the same variable name, but I want you to see that we're sending an object and receiving an object. So to reiterate, when we run this method, we come and run this method, the credit card object is created. We gave it to this variable, but in order to hold on to that object, once we left this function, we need to return the object back to wherever we were being called from, back to the function that called us. So this is what called create card. So that object then is being returned back to and put into this variable. So now credit card object has that variable in hand, and so we can continue on through the main method with that object in our hand. So now main has access to the object. All right, so let's just run it and see what happens. Let's just make sure it's all working. It's always good to, oh, looks like I've got some underlining, some red underlining I didn't notice before. So let's see what I'm doing here. So I have a credit card is not defined. Oh, right, that's very important. So what's happening here? It doesn't know what a credit card is. It's saying error. Why don't I know what a credit card is? Well, remember, if we're using information from another file, we have to tell this file that we're in where to get this information. How do you find information about a credit card? It's not described or defined in this particular page. So we're going to go after our comments here. And remember, we're going to import, let's see, I did it backwards here. I always do it backwards. From the name of the file that we're importing from, which is credit card, from credit card. So from that file, that should be in the same directory. It's in the same folder. In other words, let me see if I can show it to you. Come on. Why am I not getting access to it? There we go. So I'm currently in this directory called credit card app. So in this directory, I have two files. So look in the same directory that I'm in for a file named credit card. I'm currently working in credit card app.py. Look in the credit card. I don't have to put py here, but look in the credit card file and import everything. So give me access to everything that's in that file. And now we should be able to see this red squiggly line go away. There we go. Now credit card, the compiler knows where to find information about the credit card. It's in this file, and we should be good to go. All right, so now let's create the card. I'll give it a name, and nothing happened because I haven't really asked it to display anything. But what I do know at this point is that things are running, and I'm making sure I don't have any more compile errors. So that's looking good. The next thing we need to do is display menu choices. So let's create a function that displays menu choices. Call it menu. Okay, so what are we doing in our menu? We're creating that selection of choices for the user to choose from. So please select. I'm just going to copy and paste. It's just a bunch of print statements, and so I don't think this will be something we need to spend time on. There we go. So we just have a bunch of print statements that are printing out our menu choices. I'm then asking for, please enter the selection 1, 2, or 0 to quit, and then return the choice. So whatever number the user selected, 1, 2, or 3, return it to whoever called me. Well, we didn't write that yet, so we're going to do that down here. All right, so now I have to call menu. All right. So the next thing we need to do is to process the choices. Well, let's just make sure this runs. Kirsten, doesn't matter, spell my name right. And it didn't seem to run, so let's see why. I've got a circle here, which indicates I didn't save my file. And so now when I run it, let's try it again. And cardholder name Kirsten, and there's our menu. So we are plugging along. All right, what's next? So now we have our menu. We are sending back a choice, but we're not receiving a choice. So I have to make sure I catch that choice. All right, so when the user makes a choice, we return 1, 2, or 0 back to our variable choice. And now we want to process that choice. All right, so we're going to create another method. We'll call this get choices, or process choices, I guess is really a better term. Process choices. Okay, so let's kind of think about what we need to do here. We're kind of thinking that if they choose 1, then we need to use this method that is makes a payment. Remember, we're using our class, the method from the class, because we got it. Every object has these methods and these properties. If they choose 2, we're going to use this purchase. And if we use 0, we're going to quit. Well, 1 and 2 are methods of our object. And so we're going to need our object in here to run these methods. And remember why I'm using methods from the class instead is because each object has its own balance, because we're creating separate cards from the class. As a result, if I run self-balance, if I run it from the object and the method, then I will have that object's, that specific card's balance. Let me give more of an example here, so hopefully this makes more sense. So what I need to do to run process choices, I want to have in hand that unique credit card that we created at the beginning of this program. And we created a card that automatically had a 0 balance, and it has a card name that we got at the very beginning. So I want that unique credit card. And so when I call purchase process choices, I'm going to send process choices the credit card object that we created at the very beginning. So remember, this is a unique credit card. And I need to put this in parentheses, and credit card OBJ. So I need to send that to this method. Again, I'm going to give it a different name, but it's all the same thing. So send into this method that credit card. Give that method this particular credit card so it can look at itself, look at its own specific unique balance. And so by doing that, then I can choose to say if it's, let's see, there's a lot that I want to add here and I don't want to make it confusing. Okay, so now I've got that unique credit card. Hopefully by the time I'm done with this, this will all kind of come together. I'm going to move this menu choice into this process. And here's the reason why. I'm going to get the choice right here. And now that I have in my hand, so this choice, this is going to go run this menu, because it's going to return 1 or 2. And so now I can say if choice is equal to 1, then I'm just going to put a comment here to help us remember that we need to make a payment. Make a payment. Gosh, payment. Else, I guess we'll do an L if choice is equal to 2, then we need to make a purchase. Make a purchase. Else, then we've chosen 0, and then we're going to quit the else. Let's see, I'm thinking at the same time here. Else, return back to the main, I suppose is the way to word that. Return to the main so we can end the program. Okay? So let's see. The idea then is I can, in this process choices, I can run the menu. Menu's going to return 1, 2, or 0. And so if it's going to choose 1, I need to go do this make payment. I think you're getting the idea there. So if choice is equal to 1, we have our object, credit card object. So take this unique card, this very specific card that has its very own balance, and look at the class. I want this to go away, thank you. Look at the class and run this one of the methods from this blueprint that is specific now to this credit card. So what did we choose? Make a payment. So this is the name, make payment, and what the payment amount is. So we need to credit card, and we're going to type in make payment, and we're going to have to send it a payment amount, which we haven't gotten yet. Okay, so that will do up here, and we'll say payment amount is equal to int input, enter the payment amount. Okay, so I'm hoping that this is making sense. I know this is kind of a lot to absorb, which is why I'm doing this example. All right, so kind of the same process that we're going to do here. If they chose 2, we need to do a purchase. So we'll say purchase amount is equal to int input, int input, enter purchase amount. And then we're going to do again. Here's my unique card. So credit card OBJ. Use the method that's unique to this particular credit card that we got from the class when we created this credit card object, which is make purchase. And we need to send it the purchase amount that we just got from our user. Okay. And then the last part of that is else we'll return to. And we really don't need that because that's all we really need at this point, I think. Okay. So the other thought is that this is, well, let's just run this and see what we get. At the end of our elif, let's print out our balance. We can display the balance. Oh, I spelled balance wrong. We can display this balance here when we're all done with this process. So we can say, use my unique credit card objects, use its display balance method, which then will go run the display balance, which will print out my unique, unique instance credit card, this specific individual credit card, print out my balance. So let's run that and see what happens. We need to quit that. Okay, so let's run this again. What is the name of the card holder? Let's make a payment. So remember, our initial balance was 0. If we make a payment of $50, we should now have a negative $50 balance. The balance is negative $50. Okay, so that's looking like we're doing something right. So let's do the other way. What is the name of the card holder? Kirsten. And then if we make a purchase, let's make a purchase of $95.50. And we get an error. What happened with this one? Okay, good. This is why we print things. We do troubleshooting. We do running through our code step by step so we can make sure we don't have these kinds of errors and we can troubleshoot them right away. So it doesn't like the fact that invalid literal for base 10. So I'm guessing I did something wrong with my, what did we do? Make a purchase. Int input enter. What did it not like? Line 32 is where it's seeing my error. Invalid literal for int. So it doesn't like the way I did purchase amount. It's int. Oh, I see. I definitely made a mistake. Good thing that I'm testing this. Didn't think of this until just this moment. So I put in $95.50. But what did I specifically say I was going to try and do? I was going to try and take the input and convert it into a float. And so I'm getting a big no, you can't convert 9550 into an int because it's not an int. It's a what? It's a float. So I'm going to change these to floats then to allow our users to enter dollars and cents. Okay. Okay, good. So now let's run it. And this time we will make a purchase. Wait, I need that to go away. Can we go away, please? Thank you. So now what is the name of the card holder? And let's make a payment again. I guess we're going to make a purchase this time to make sure it works. And I put in made $95.50. And there, now I'm good. Okay, so good to troubleshoot as you go along. Make sure you run your code, and that way it's, I think we've established that. That way you can fix your errors quicker rather than too much code at once. Okay, so now the next thing that I'm thinking is it's really would like to keep running this over and over again. So I'm going to put this whole selection process in a loop so that way I can continue to make purchases or payments until the user decides to quit. All right, so we're going to put all of this in a while loop. And I think I'll say choice. The first time I'll give it choice equal to 1 so that I know it's going to go into my while loop while choice is greater than 0. Then I'm going to indent all of this code. Okay. And then, yeah, so that'll work. So by virtue of, I guess I have to indent here also. By virtue of running this menu option over and over again, that's changing my choice. So once the user chooses 0, 0 is greater than, is no longer greater than 0, so we'll exit the while, which will exit the whole process. So now let's just test that to make sure it's working. Name of the card holder, and then I'll make a, let's make a purchase, and we'll make a $50.95 purchase. And then it did not run my method again. Why did it not? Let's see. Oh, once again, failure to save. Okay, what is credit card holder? Kirsten, we're going to make a purchase. Enter the purchase amount, $50, $55, and then we'll make a payment, and we'll make a payment of $10. And at the end, the balance is $40.55. It's asking me, shall I quit? I think I'm done. Hit 0, and I'm done. Okay, this balance is driving me crazy. I didn't save that file. Now I'm spelling balance right. Okay, so we're just about home free now, aren't we? We just need to, I guess, create a closing. Maybe do a final closing. Of course, we're already printing out what our balance is, so maybe that's all we need to do. Let's just, for fun, create some kind of closing, and DEF closing, print, thank you for using our app, and then we could, I guess we could print out the, well, that's fine. That's the ending of it. That seems pretty easy. All right, I mean, anything fancier than that. We already have our balance being printed out, so let's just run it one more time. And of course, into something very simple, I forgot the parentheses. I always forget the parentheses because that was from Python 2, which you did not have to put parentheses on, habit. And now at this point, I would probably clean up just small little things that irritate me, like there should be a space after what is the name of the card holder and that kind of thing. But that's pretty minute at this point. I think we've got the logic down. Make a payment. I'm going to go backwards here. I'm going to make a payment of $45.50. My balance is negative $45.50, as you can see here. Make a purchase. We're going to make a purchase of $50 and see how it handles it. And it says the balance is $50. And it looks like I have a math error. So that is something I need to address. So we're missing, it's probably either a rounding error or, and the reason why I can see that I've got an error is, I don't know if you caught it, you probably did, and I didn't catch it soon enough. But what we did was we made a, I made a payment of $45.50, and then I made a purchase and I had a negative. Wait, where did it go? Okay, so I had a payment of $45.50. I had a balance of negative $45.50. I made a $50 payment, and then I ended up with a balance of $50. So we need to, I'm going to quit the program, and let's figure out what we did incorrectly. All right, so what I would do is a little bit of troubleshooting. I would probably, let's run a test real quick. So I'm going to click in here, type Python credit card, run it again. And what I'm going to do is just pay attention to what isn't working at .py. All right, so whatever. Let's make a payment and make sure that that payment amount, if we make a payment of $10, the balance is negative 10. So if I make another payment of $25, okay, $225, that is currently keeping a correct balance. So that seems to be okay. I'm going to quit and run it again and check. Now I'm going to test the purchase program, the purchase method, because something is not adding up properly there. So make a purchase, and if I make a purchase of $10 and I do another purchase of $25, I should have $35. I can see that it's not keeping a running total. So something in my method logic isn't making sense. So I'm going to go back to that particular module, that particular method, and look to see what I did wrong. And I am guessing that my candidate that's causing me my problem is that I did my shortcut operator backwards. So if I do plus equals, let's see if that doesn't fix our problem. Start this program again, and this time, and I make a purchase, and the purchase is $10, and I make a purchase another time and run it for $20, and if I've corrected my error, now I have a running total. So inadvertently, I created a situation where we need to make sure we pay attention to not only the fact that our program is running, but it's outputting what we expect. In this case, it was not. So then you have to go back and troubleshoot piece by piece to figure out which part of your puzzle isn't working. We could see that our payment portion was working just fine. It was accumulating our payments, but our purchase was not accumulating our purchases. So now we've got that all working right, and I think we have created for ourselves an application that is making effective use of methods or functions. It has made an effective use of creating a credit card application or a credit card class. We've created an instance of that class or an object, a credit card object, and we've used that credit card object through our different functions in order to get at the specific credit card object's properties, that specific credit card objects, methods to display, to make payments, purchases, and display our balance. So I know that was a lot, but hopefully you can watch the video over several times and piece it all together. It's a new concept, but a very, very important one to get a hold of.